Okay, welcome back to another episode of This Way Out. I am your host, Miguel Mata, and today my guest is...
Lanear Brown.
Lanear Brown. Lanear and I have a little bit of history. Actually, we have quite a bit of history. Our paths have crossed time and again throughout our military careers, and we managed to kind of link back up right here in Charleston.
Yeah.
And our active duty careers ended, and now we're both going to the College of Charleston. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah, and that was random. We just walked across the street.
yeah. Hey, Lanear.
What are you doing here? Oh, I'm going to school here.
What? Me too. So that's pretty. That was a neat little moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. To see you there. Lanear he and I have been talking for a little while, and I knew that he had an interesting story, just like everybody has a story. I keep saying. But I didn't realize that there was so much to unpack. So this might be like a two-parter. Like, we might have to talk to Lanear about some stuff and maybe follow up because there's quite a few things. But the good news is that you've gotten beyond those particular things, or you've either overcome some and you're still kind of dealing with others. But either way, you're on the up.
Every day is still a struggle, but I don't want to say it gets easier. It just, things don't seem as dire.
Oh, okay, I see.
It's like when things first happen, they seem, oh my gosh, the world is gonna end, kind of deal. But like now, it's things don't seem that dire. I can put it in a perspective of like, okay, so how does this really affect the situation?
I think that's kind of one of the things that I'm trying to make. I'm trying to, I guess, prove with this show is that, it for a lot of people, or for many people, it may seem like the world is ending. You know what I mean? Like the world is just this really terrible, dark place. But there are ways to overcome that stuff, and there are people who have done that, and you are one of those people, Lanear. So thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And so how about we start with, you are also retired military.
Yes.
What are the different places that you have, because you've been all over the world. Let's see. Let's go with units. Let's go with units. There are people that are not going to understand
bases.
this. Yeah, bases.
All
Let's
right.
go with bases first.
So, besides, Texas, where everybody goes.
Yeah.
And after I left Shepherd, which is in Wichita Falls, Texas, which there's not a lot in Wichita Falls.
As someone from Texas, I think I speak for a lot of people. We don't really count Wichita Falls as Texas. It's more Oklahoma.
Okay, fair enough.
They can have it. They can have it.
Yeah, they can have it. I went to California, so I was at Edwards, which is in the middle of the Mojave Desert, which there's nothing around. So I was there, but it's pretty centrally located. So LA is an hour and a half. The Bay Area was 5 hours. San Diego was 3 hours. Vegas was 3 hours. I mean, Tahoe was 8. I mean, like, it was pretty centrally located, but as a broke airman, you can only travel when it was a good payday month,
Yeah.
And then after that, I got stationed in Okinawa, Japan. And so from there, I saw Alaska, Korea, Hawaii, Guam, mainland Japan, Singapore. My first deployment was out of there, where I went to Kyrgyzstan got there 2 weeks, which we had a pool going before I left, and I would have won the money had I still been at home, but I got there 2 weeks before Iraqi freedom kicked off.
Oh, okay.
So, then I don't really remember a whole lot of other major places that I went, because we were on a pretty good rotation of just staying in the Pacific. But from there, I went to Grand Forks,
North Dakota.
Yeah.
I always called that that's where we met for the first time. But as it turned out, we were at Edwards and Okinawa together. We just didn't know each other then.
Yeah.
But I always call Grand Forks, and there might be some people who see this that'll get upset by this, especially my wife. But I always called Grand Forks my best assignment.
So, Grand Forks.
You would probably disagree, I'm sure, for a few reasons.
Grand Forks had an interesting thing about it. If you didn't want to be there, it was really easy to get sent somewhere else to come back.
Right.
So you always came back to new stuff. I mean, like, it was. We used to joke about it, like with the deployment schedule, you were TDY to home station, which meant you were out visiting your home before you went somewhere else.
Right.
So, I don't know. Grand Forks was interesting because I didn't really think I liked Grand Forks, and it wasn't so much that I liked Grand Forks, it was just all the people that we had there.
Yeah, the people made it awesome.
The people made that base tolerable. The winters were horrible. All 9 months of them.
Yeah.
You know, the mosquitoes for the other 3 months was terrible.
Right.
But I mean, we deployed so much, but we all stuck together. We all kept each other going.
Yeah.
And so then after that, and from Grand Forks is where I went. I went to quite a few places from there. I went all over the United States, that's for sure. Or England, Germany, Spain, Azores. Greece, Turkey, just the 29 different shades of brown in the desert.
Right. So from there, that's when you came here, though.
Right, and then after Grand Forks, I came here to Charleston, and I've been here ever since.
And you arrived here what year?
2011.
2011. And then you retired in what year?
2014.
2014, 3 years later. I knew that your career was full of ups and downs, but I did not necessarily realize the severity of some of your experiences. We're going to talk about, what you're studying here at the College of Charleston. What are you studying here at the College of Charleston?
I am an exercise science major.
Okay.
So
an exercise science major. You're going to be able to elaborate on that a little bit more. But your passion for exercise science actually started in Grand Forks. Do I have that right?
Right.
Before then, it's kind of fuzzy, I guess. Like you don't have a trajectory at that point other than to finish your career, I would imagine.
Right. And then a good friend who you know well, good old B. Little, Burrell. I was deployed. Well, it wasn't because I was deployed. I was working with him, and we had talked, and we used to hang out, and we used to work out together. And then we ended up deploying together, and I was working out with him all the time. And I would just do whatever he said to do, I'd do. But it came to a point where I found out I was holding myself back, and one day I think we were doing a chest press machine or something, and he threw weight on there, and I was like, I can't do that. He's like, just sit down and do it. And I was like, all right. And I did it just fine.
If I die, it's on you, buddy. I'm never going to talk to you again. I die on this bench, never speaking to you ever again.
But it was one of those experiences where you really find out that you can just hold yourself back so much because you're not willing to even try. Mm-hmm. And I got on there and I was like, I don't think I could do this. He's like, just do it. And so I got on there and I got ready and I did it. And I was like, I can do that. He's like, see? He's like, don't hold yourself back. And so
he saw something in you that you didn't necessarily see for yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, I still talk to him now occasionally, and I value his opinion and his frame of mind and everything because it's very different than mine, but that's why I value it, because his thought process is so much different than mine. There's a lot I can take away from it. And he's just a good guy. I mean, just deep down, even though he doesn't like other people to know that, he's a good guy. And hopefully I don't hopefully I don't get in trouble.
Yeah, hopefully he's not watching, because I don't need him coming all the way to South Carolina to beat both of us up.
Hey, if he comes all the way to South Carolina, I'll take him out before he beats me up.
Okay, so you get introduced, I guess, to weight training in a different way, a different level of weight training, I guess you could say. And then what happens?
So then, shortly after that, I got into a car accident, a really bad one. So there had been black ice the night before, and I still have the paper for this, and a lot of people are like, why do you keep a newspaper where you almost died? And I'm like, because it was a turning point in my life. I was on the interstate, and I was slowing down, and I was like, and then everything about it, I tell people, I was like, I remember everything about it. I made a conscious decision because my car started to slide on the ice, and it started sliding towards the median in the middle with oncoming traffic. And I consciously made an effort to get the wheels to spin so I would go to the other side. So I was like, if I am going to go, I am not taking anyone else with me, was my whole thought process. And so I got my car to start headed towards the other side, but I started picking up speed. Like, I was not going very fast, but by the time I was sliding, I was gliding pretty quickly.
Right.
And it turned sideways, and like I saw the mile marker coming right towards the side window. It impacted, shattered glass in my face, and the next thing I know, I'm tumbling down. You kind of get a weightlessness for a minute, but like it's just rolling.
And you were conscious for the whole experience?
No, so I blacked out. I blacked out probably about roll number 2 or 3, but I came back to really quick. And so like I came back to, I heard the static on my radio. So the first thought is, all right, turn off the car, because if there's electricity flowing, then that can get dangerous. So I turned off the car, and then I realized there's like, I'm in a lot of pain, but I realized there's blood coming off of, there's blood on my hand. So like, it's not a whole lot, but I don't know where it's coming from. So, and then my arm, I can't feel my left arm. So, I tell everybody it's an interesting thing that I actually was stupid enough to do this, but I was like, all right, if this is going to be a problem, I need to know about it now. So I pulled on my arm, and then I had pain shoot from my fingertips all the way up, and I was like, cool, arm is still attached. Don't have to worry about bleeding out. Come to find out that glass had cut my forehead, and that's where the blood had actually come from on my hand.
A lot of blood vessels on your face, so you bleed a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So, some people had stopped and everything, and a guy helped me get out of my seatbelt because I couldn't get out of it. I was trapped in my seatbelt. The car, my foot was actually where my driver's side mirror was, so it was pinned underneath the car.
Wow.
So they helped push it off so I could stand up. I was on my way to the airport to pick up a friend, and if she had been with me in the car, she would have died, and it would have been my fault.
You think so?
Oh, I know, because that side of the roof was caved in to right above the the passenger side seat, but not on my side.
Right.
So basically, I tried to go out, like they had pulled the rest of my front windshield out, but I couldn't because of the fact of I can't feel my left arm, but it's like I knew it was like dislocated or something, and I couldn't go out through the back because I just couldn't physically make it through there. I just turned and I started kneeing out the moonroof, and so I got it out to the point where they could pry the rest of it off and went out through the moonroof and then kind of collapsed. The interesting thing about this is right before I blacked out, I had this whole vision.
Wait, you blacked out during the roll?
During the roll.
After you got out?
During the roll.
Okay.
Right before I blacked out during the roll, I had this whole vision, and I heard a voice, and the voice said, "You're gonna survive this because I'm not done with you yet." And then I'm like 95% sure that I'm not making this part up, that I actually heard this, but that could have been my subconscious afterwards. But I'm pretty sure it said, "But this is gonna hurt." So afterwards, I got to the hospital, dislocated shoulder, fractured shoulder blade, microfractures on my spine, twisted ankle, sprained wrist, the really superficial ones. But a few months later, after therapy and everything, had to have surgery on my shoulder. Doctor tells me, yeah, you'll probably never be able to lift 50 pounds above your head.
I think you just left out a big chunk though. Like you went through this therapy, but you thought something was up.
Well, yeah, I thought after a couple weeks, after like the 6 weeks of downtime that they give you and everything, and I started going through physical therapy, after a couple weeks of physical therapy, probably about 2 or 3 weeks, I told my physical therapist at the base, I was like, I think something's still wrong. And she's like, well, you know, you just started physical therapy, so...
You're good, dude. Go ahead. Yeah, whatever. Just keep talking.
She's like, you know, you just started therapy, so, you know, it's, you don't know. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there's something really wrong. I was like, it's just, it doesn't feel right. And so come to find out that, yes, I had to have surgery because they needed to remove a Bankart lesion, which, look it up. It's like, it's really not very interesting. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But they had to do some surgery and fix up. They would like fix up some scar tissue and stuff. But the doctor literally told me after the surgery, he's like, yeah, he's like, you're gonna lose mobility in your left arm. He's like, really more than likely, you'll probably never be able to lift 50 pounds above your head again. I was like, cool, challenge accepted. I mean, like, seriously, that's what, when he told me that you'll never be able to do this and that means you'll limited mobility, blah, 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 I was like, all right, watch me. I was like, because when I do it, I'll send you the pictures, I'll send you the video. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how I got it in my head, because after surviving that, don't tell me what I can't do.
Right. Hey folks, me again. Quick message. Are you walking around with the words "I can't" rattling around in your head? Well, I'm here to tell you that you can. And I believe that because, not because I'm saying it, and you shouldn't believe it because I'm saying it. You should believe it because you've done it before. You can and you will get past whatever it is that you're dealing with right now because you've done it before. This is not your first time feeling this way. You felt like this way before, but you managed to get past it, either because you dug down deep and found a way to find the strength within yourself, you reached out to a friend or got help from others, but you did it before and you can do it again, and you'll keep doing it. I can't doesn't mean you won't. You can, and you will. You were determined to prove him wrong.
Right.
And maybe prove yourself wrong, maybe.
Right. And then
challenge yourself. It was a challenge to yourself.
And there was a lot of challenges that I went through because, you know, I was sidelined from my job and doing pretty much, you know, all the administrative work the entire time while I'm trying to heal.
Right.
So that whole thing was just, I wanted to be out there doing what I love doing, which was working on airplanes. So then the other thing is, like, I felt like I was starting to fall short on my abilities to be able to do my job. Like, I kept myself gainfully employed and they gave me projects to keep me busy and everything. But the same thing was, I was getting my coworkers stopped respecting the fact that I was out there and I did have this rank, and I did because they only saw me inside. And so, I mean, like, when you start losing the respect of your coworkers because you're not out there, it really really messes with you. And I mean, like, some of them were just having fun, you know, because that's what we do. We got to do that to keep ourselves engaged. Right. That was really hard. That was probably the worst part. The worst thing that I did in Grand Forks, like, that I had to deal with in Grand Forks like that. Because, I mean, after that, when I was finally back deployable, 2 almost back-to-back deployments, and I was winning awards on both of those deployments. You know, I was coming back. I like talking to people, and they're like, I know you. I know your work. It just felt good to be back there. Yeah. And I proved to myself that I was still as good. I actually think I came back better than I was before. Right. Because I had the motivation to get better.
You also had a new appreciation for life, I think, right?
Yeah. Then right before I left North Dakota, I had a partial hip dislocation. So that meant I couldn't run. I could barely walk. You know, I was back to that whole, what can I do? They were like, can't go up and down a ladder. Give it a couple weeks. I'll be backing up and down the ladder.
Yeah.
You know, it's like physical limitations make everything hard, everything difficult.
Especially when you're in the work that we used to do on fixing airplanes.
Yeah, but you start to appreciate running more when you physically can't do it.
I don't know that I would be able to. I hate running. I hated running.
When you physically can't do something, you get a little bit more appreciation for being able to do it.
No, I
whether you want to do it or not, you're like, I appreciate the fact that I can do this.
Yeah, no, it's just like being able to lose the ability to walk or to see or to hear or anything like that. And then if you get that ability back, it's like you have a whole new appreciation for it. You'll probably be seeing and hearing and running, just like you said.
Yeah.
You know, have a new appreciation for it. So I poke fun, but I understand. I understand what you mean.
And so then when I came here, you know, I was going through that whole having to rebuild myself after a hip dislocation. So I had to get back stronger. And so, you know, since I hadn't passed PT test, they were making me go to mandatory PT. I was going to PT, and then some of those guys who were running the sessions had no idea about working out. The only way to pass a running test is to run. No, you kind of got to work on building up your strength on your legs as well as your endurance.
Right.
There's things about running has mechanics to it. If you don't have good running mechanics, you can't run well. You know, shoes. I had to start learning myself about fitness because I'm trying to rebuild myself for my own purposes, but I'm also trying to fight the whole way it's always been.
Right.
Oh, you can't run this mile.
Workouts.
Yeah. Well, you know, you can't run this mile and a half. Go run more. You need to run more. Yeah. Maybe there's something more to it than that. You know, like people, like I will say, there are certain exercises, push-ups and sit-ups being one of them. If you don't do push-ups, you never get better at push-ups. You literally just have to do them. But running is not one of those.
So it sounds like we're at a good point here to transition into your post-military career, as far as with regard to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Because you had the injuries that you sustained while you were active duty, car accident, hip displacement,
like some partial dislocation.
Right, dislocation. Okay, so you had a car accident, you had a hip injury, right? You're having to try to rehabilitate, or you rehabbed through, you know, the program that was given to you, and learning that this is not the best way to do this.
Right.
And between the experiences that you had in Grand Forks of being introduced to weight training, having to rehabilitate, now you're no longer active duty, and you have this opportunity to go back to school, and now you're...
So the funny thing is, like, I got all prepared to keep working on airplanes, and I even tried. And while I was working at Target, you know, trying to make ends meet while I'm waiting on a contract to come through to come work at a thing, I was also taking out student loans and working on trying to finish my computer science degree. So when I tell you that I never thought about fitness as a degree, like originally I was like, I'm going to be a computer engineer or electrical engineer, one of those two, because that's where the money is. That's engineering. That sounds fun. And so I was working on my computer science degree, going to finish that, then go back to Illinois and go get my computer science or computer engineering degree from U of I, because their programs, it was like I had all this planned out. And then I was like, I have my house, so I was like, all right, well, I need to be able to get ready to sell my house if I'm going to move back. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I really don't want to go back to Chicago. It's too cold. I don't like snow, you know, so I'll stay here. With programming, you know, you have to look at things and everything, and they'd be like, well, send me a copy of it, and they'd be like, oh, your answer's right in front of your face. And I'm like, well, if it's right in front of my face, why don't I see it? I applied to College of Charleston. My GPA dropped too low, so then they were like, well, just go to Trident for a few semesters, get your GPA up, and you'll be fine. When I went to go to counseling to start at Trident, he was like, well, what are your interests? I was like, well, I wanted to finish my computer science degree. I was like, I'm interested in fitness. stuff. And he goes, we have a program that is designed to help you become a personal trainer. I was like, cool. When does it start?
Yeah.
He's like, well, you know, you can get on next year, blah, blah, blah. He's like, that way you can take all your classes that you might need right now for prerequisites and stuff. So you don't have to spend as much time in class, you know. And so I was like, cool. So I was taking classes at Trident and started taking, you know, I got into anatomy and physiology and I loved them. They're really hard, but I really loved about finding out about the body and how complex it is. And, you know, we'll never build a machine that's nearly as sophisticated as our own bodies. And I was like, I'm going to be a personal trainer. And as I got closer and closer to the end, I got my internship at the Citadel. And I was working with their strength and conditioning department, which those guys are awesome. I still talk to them. I love them. They like, if ever I have a question, I can go ask them. And working with the football team. So here was the thing about strength and conditioning. I started working with the football team and like I got close to those guys because, you know, I was their coach. And then when we were in the weight room, it was all business, you know, let's come in, let's work hard, let's get at it. And it felt like I was in the military again. I knew that there was something else that I had to be doing and I didn't know. So I decided to go to College of Charleston. So I spent that summer working 2 jobs between Trident and College of Charleston. I was working as a personal trainer. I was working at Target still. And it got to be way too much. So I left Target and I was working as a personal trainer. And I was like, personal training, I understood why personal trainers have other jobs. Because unless you have a steady stream of clients in the door, you're not making enough to make ends meet. So I was like, that was a whole nother, I definitely need to go to school because this isn't going to pay bills. So when I got to College of Charleston, you know, first class, I remember it was probably day 1 of my exercise physiology class. This guy named Dr. Payne walks in, right? So it's like, he's like, I'm Dr. Payne, blah, blah, blah. Rolls up his sleeves. He's got tattoos down to here. He's a PhD. He's like, yeah, I've been in the Army Reserve for 12 years, blah, blah, blah. This, that, the other. And I was like, I literally was like, looked at him. I was like, I want to be like that guy. I want to be teaching in college just like that guy.
Yeah.
And that was like, that said it right there. That pretty much did it.
Yep.
I mean, like I'd already talked to a few people, you know, a few of my instructors and everything. But like that semester, like walking into that class was like, yeah, I want to be like him. I want to be a teacher. I want to do this. So that's the end goal, is a PhD, college professor at some school. I don't know where. Maybe College of Charleston if I stay here. It's all up in the air right now.
I tell you what, dude, you've been talking here for a while, and I think it's what I find cool about it is that, like, you know, it's a peek behind the curtain, like where your head is at, you know. And I always find that stuff interesting when I meet people and when I talk to people, right? You and I have known each other for a while, but I still didn't know all of these things, and these stories, they fascinate me. And what is unfortunate is that I think we've maxed out our time for this episode, but we will definitely be following up because there's a whole other aspect of Lanear Brown that we haven't even explored yet.
Oh yeah.
There's a whole
I'm like a deep dive, I feel like.
This was, hold your breath. Strap on your seatbelts. Sit back, relax, and strap on your seatbelts.
You probably could do a whole docu-series on me, me alone.
But it's really interesting. Because I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about where you grew up. Grew up in Chicago suburbs. You know, you have you've got some personal stuff that you had to deal with, and I don't necessarily want to reveal all that stuff in this episode. But you've got some personal stuff that you had to deal with when you were younger. that, you know, kind of drug out even throughout your adult life. And then, yeah, you know what, I guess I can preview that, but there's going to have to be a second episode.
Yeah.
There's going to have to be a follow-up with Lanear Brown, because there's a lot more stuff. So just with your injuries and what you've learned about is it physical science?
Exercise science.
Exercise science. What you've learned about, and this passion that you've developed with exercise science, I mean, that's just tip of the iceberg stuff with you. But it proves once again that everybody has a story. I didn't know all of that about you, and even the stuff that we didn't go into, I didn't know that about you either. But we'll do a follow up, and then we'll talk about that too.
I found that after getting out, I'm more willing to talk with even my friends about more of the personal stuff. Mm-hmm. Because it's not about being close circle. Mm-hmm. It's about finding that common ground, and like maybe we all help each other.
That's what this is all about.
Yeah,
that's what this is all about.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have a hard time opening up to people, mm-hmm. which probably will be explained in part 2.
Yeah,
part 2, the sequel.
Right.
But you know, it's just. I'm much more comfortable talking about things now than definitely than I was 5 years ago when I retired. Gosh, it's 5 years.
It goes by quick.
I mean, but like 5 years ago when I was at this time I was actually getting ready to retire. Mm. I mean, and then 5 years before that, 10 years ago, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to talk about like some of the things that were going on with me. So I think it's just a lot of it has to do with, as you grow, you become more willing to share yourself with other people.
Yeah. And I think it just has, at least for my point of view, like when I think about my own personal issues, it just has to be, you know, that you get to this, I don't know if it has to do with maturity, but you just come to accept that, you know, certain things happened, and as it accept. Okay, I'm talking for myself. I just kind of accept that things happened the way they happened, and then, but I refuse to let those things define who I am today. You know, I want to make me and my situation with my family better than what it was before.
Right.
I'm not going to let those circumstances define who I am today. What I like to give those an opportunity who I interview is that if you had one thing that you would like to share with somebody, you know, what would it be?
I guess this would fall into that.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I would share is that everything happens for a reason. But sometimes it is very hard to understand why it's happening until well after. Mm-hmm. Because when I was getting out, when I got my retirement put on the plate, because mine was early, mm-hmm. 5 years early. When it was put on the plate, I'm like, how is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And now I look at it, I'm like, man, I am so glad it happened when it did, because it took me those couple years to figure things out and
you needed that time.
I needed that time, but now I am so happy on where I'm headed on my mm-hmm. path, and now I understand why I got out early. Yeah. Because I think if I had stayed in for another 5 years, I mean, don't think that it would have changed my thinking for a negative, but I may not have been so enthusiastic about where I'm headed now. Right. Because it took me a while to change completely change my direction on my future, on my career. Yep. So everything happens for a reason. It'll just be a while until you figure out why.
And you seem to be in a very good place right now, dude. And I'll tell you what, I'm proud of you. I think you're kicking ass. I think you're kicking ass, and you're taking names, and you know, I also know that it's not exactly sunshine and rainbows, and you're not exactly singing fa la la all along the way, but you're doing good. You're doing good. You're in a good place, and I'm glad to know that. And you know, if you need anything, just let me know.
Yeah.
But this has been This Way Out. And I'm Miguel.
I'm Lanear.
This is Lanear. And if you like this episode and you want to see episodes like it, subscribe, like it, what is it they say? Subscribe, like,
and
comment.
then comment, and then hit that little bell so you get notifications.
Yeah, hit the little bell. Yeah, that's what
of
they
when
say.
a new episode's posted.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, man.
So, hey, man, I watch a lot of YouTube. I'll have you on my channel if I ever get it started.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. All right, thanks, everybody. Have a good day.